Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming. We're getting to the end of day 2. Tiring, but this is going to be brilliant. This is Designing Sustainable and Resilient Cities. It closes the ChangeNOW city program that's been running all day. And it is almost, I always say this, the most important session, because of course with 70% of us living in cities, cities have the opportunity to make enormous change, and we're going to explore that today. And it was striking me also that ChangeNOW is almost like a mini-city in this beautiful city of Paris with this beautiful Eiffel Tower behind me. I'm going to have to be looking out, but you guys are going to enjoy the view. Try and look at the guys talking as well. I'm going to split this session into 3 sections. The first section, we are delighted to be joined by Kata Tüttő, who is the Deputy Mayor for Budapest. Sorry. Gosh, I'm getting that mixed up. For Budapest, and Pekka Timonen, who is Mayor of Lahti. We're going to hear more about their perspectives from the coalface, if you like. Then we're going to talk about heat. And we have the Chief Heat Officer for Athens joining us remotely. And she's going to talk to us about what she's doing, what actually her job is, because I'm not sure what a Chief Heat Officer does. And I have also Sagnik from ECOTEN, who is one of the innovators displaying down there, who's going to talk to us about solutions and what he's doing to help combat heat in cities. And then finally, possibly most importantly, but you can't have, like children, you can't have favorites, but we're going to talk about the money. And the money is really important. So we have Emilie Maehara from the Global Fund for Cities, who's going to be talking to us about the money that is available, and it's extraordinary, there's loads of it, to fund programs to build sustainable and resilient cities. So that's how it's going to work. Hope that's okay. Please stay till the end. We're going to go through quickly and make it quite good fun. So without further ado, I'm going to invite Pekka and Kata to join me on stage. They've spent the whole day together, so they're kind of in the groove of discussing. A big round of applause. Welcome. So I'm going to quickly do the bio thing, because I think it's important to just get context. But Kata, you're the Deputy Mayor of Budapest in Hungary. You're a member of the European Committee of the Regions. You're chair of the Commission for the Environment, Climate Change and Energy, as well as the Green Deal Going Local. You're a former chair of the Financial and Public Procurement Commission, a board member of the Budapest Transport Company, and you've been a member of the COR delegation to various COPs, including the COP in Glasgow, which was in the UK, as all of us know. So welcome. What an amazing experience you have. And then Pekka, you have also an amazing background. You're the mayor of Lahti, I pronounce it Lahti, in Finland, so country in the news at the moment. You were elected in 2018. You have 120 inhabitants. You have a center of urban region for over 200,000 people. Did I say 120,000 inhabitants, 200,000 people? You're a pioneer of sustainable solutions and the European Green Capital in 2021. So you've just recently been doing that, which is amazing. And previously, you were General Secretary at the Prime Minister's Office and served as Cultural Director of Helsinki and also in various management positions. So you've been in the private sector as well as the public sector. So you have incredible wisdom to share with us. So what I'm going to ask you both to do, if I may, and I'm going to start with you, Kata, talk to us about what you're doing on this agenda of building resilient and sustainable cities.
Okay, thank you very much for the invitation. I'll try to keep it short because I can talk about it for like 2 hours, so I will highlight my favorite stuff. So when I talk about Budapest, capital city, most of our European capital cities are quite doing the same things. When we talk about resiliency, when we talk about climate change adaptation, climate change mitigation, we are doing it because these are the things that have been set out what to do. And we also have this framework of the Covenant of Mayors. You were talking about the COP, we talk about the role of cities in reaching the climate change goals. So we have this movement of cities, the Covenant of Mayors. The main purpose is to collect those mayors and those cities who have ambition, not just to be in line with the common climate goals, but to even go further. So this is what we do, raise ambition. If we say that we want to reduce CO2 emissions by 2030, cities can say, I can do better, I can do more, I have solutions, I can show you what we're doing. We are looking at, of course, transport. We want less cars, we want more walking cities, we want more people using public transport, we want more people not to travel so much. So we want to have the 15-minute cities, having services on the local level so people won't spend their days in their cars. What we want to do, we want to change how we look at public spaces. Because most of our public spaces in cities are used by cars. We want our public spaces to connect our citizens, because what we learned, if we want to have happier citizens, we have to connect them with their neighbors. In the big cities, we don't know our neighbors. Knowing the neighbors, it's a good network. So when we talk about resilience, having also not just talk about concrete and buses and stuff, but a network of our citizens. That's a really big thing to create resilience. Okay, what we do? We think differently about water. Earlier, like 30 years ago, most of our cities were thinking, okay, there's a lot of water, we have to put it away somewhere. Okay, let's drain it. And now, with climate change realities, we see that we have to preserve water. We have to keep water. Where to keep all the water? Because we have all these surfaces with the concrete, and they are going down the drain. We want to change that. We want to keep water in every surface that's possible for the times when we don't have it. My favorite issue is, of course, we will talk a lot about energy. Everybody was talking a lot about energy, but trees. We have this movement of having more trees. We have this initiative of planting additional 3 billion trees in the European Union. Of course, you cannot plant so many trees in cities because it's already quite populated. It's a challenge to have trees in cities. But we are changing the way how we look at trees. Like in Budapest, we found a new way. Because normally you think about it's a tree, okay, you cut it out and you put a tree somewhere else, and it's a one tree, one tree. But we give a new value to the trees, and how we calculate value of the trees. It's not, the value of a tree is not the money you invest in to grow a tree. But tree has different goods that it provides. Okay, it captures carbon, we know that. It gives shade, and shade in a city which is hot in the summer, that's a value. It also binds dust. The bigger the tree is, the more dust it can bind in the city, and air pollution is an issue. And the third one, the tree is respirating, so it's a lot of vapor that's being produced. And what we use now is a special solution, an artificial intelligence, so it's all digitalization and greening issue. We go around with this sort of Google car, we have a picture of all of our trees, and we are calculating the values for these 4 factors of all the trees we have in Budapest. By this, we have a cataster of trees and also a different value of these trees, and it becomes more valuable having a tree in a city, in a special place where like it's affected with heat waves and air pollution, than putting it somewhere else. So I'll stop here.
Yeah, that's good.
Yes,
That's very good. Okay.
Sounds like a very covering program.
I mean, I sense we could have carried on for a bit longer, but thank you for that. Pekka is now going to give us a little
coming
bit.
From a city which probably most of you might never have heard, Lahti is a city in southern Finland, 1 hour from Helsinki. But the interesting thing, I represent a majority of Europeans. Majority of Europeans live in mid-sized cities, so between 100,000 and 300,000. And so it's always interesting to a little bit discuss about the big cities, really big cities like Paris and Budapest, and then the majority of the cities, which is the mid-sized cities. And it's very interesting that the role of different cities is varying, so that people have different images about different cities, how they are doing. But when we talk about sustainability and resilience, you have to throw your own images away, because some cities are moving faster than others. And they are not necessarily the cities you might think about. So this is one thing which is really happening in Europe now. In the same time, as we have seen today and we have discussed with our colleagues, there are more and more ambitious cities everywhere in Europe. So it's growing and we are moving. But also, at the same time, coming from a city which is a city of doers, as we say. We try to give less big statements and we try to do more because this is what we need to do. So there are a lot of cities saying this is what we will do. And then when you look to little letters, they say, might in the future if somebody gives us money. That's not the way to move forward. The way to move forward is to do things. So I'm coming from a city which was last year European Green Capital. We are now in the new EU 100 Cities Mission Program, as you are too. And also our target is to be carbon neutral by 2025. That's tomorrow, dear friends.
Wow.
And we are on that track right now. It's going to be very hard to squeeze that last part. But it's about doing. It's about doing things. And that's what cities are. National governments, they make these papers and regulations and all that stuff. Who does the action? It's us, cities and municipalities. We do the thing. So we are the ones who create the possibilities and implement everything what we do. And that's the role of cities. And it's good we talk today about sustainable cities because cities are the ones who are doing it. And then finally, something which always kind of buzzes me is that we all know that all cities must do this. Yeah. It's not the choice. So, but still there are some cities, I'm not mentioning any, but just talking, that are like some individuals too saying, it's none of my business. Saying, I will do this maybe sometime when I have done some other things. And this amazes me that why not all the cities are trying to move forward as soon as possible.
Well, thank you, Pekka. That's a very good segue into. We were listening to Kate Rayworth this morning talking about donut economics at the opening of today, and she was giving some examples of cities she's been working with, and it was the stuff that's happening already, and it wasn't the big obvious cities. I mean, Amsterdam is a big city, but then there were some other smaller local projects, and I think the point is that we need to get moving on it, and cities are more agile than governments. I mean, thank goodness we're not having a conversation about what governments are doing now, right? It's better to be talking about cities. So you have agility, which national governments don't have. You've been today with other cities, and I know you listened to Anne Hidalgo this morning. How you talk a bit about collaboration? Maybe I'll invite Kata to and you guys have been talking like ever since we bumped into each other. So in terms of accelerating, because we're about accelerating change here, we're changing now. How does that collaboration? How does something like today kind of help you accelerate? Kata?
Well, it does a lot. We have always these city networks, but when I really felt the use of this network was in the COVID crisis. So like we were facing something we've never seen before, and we could talk to other cities with similar situation and say, okay, what did you try? What are you doing? What ideas do you have? And see the results, sharing the results. There are always cities who are innovative. You cannot be an innovator in everything, but a lot of cities are innovators in some things. They try it out, they do the hard work for you. And then in the end, they're willing to share. I think this is the best of all. This is why we think it's really useful to have these covenant of mayors, committee of the regions, where you have all these mayors facing the same problems and some who already have some solutions.
And when cities collaborate, there's one principle: only stealing bad ideas is forbidden. and so to accelerate your change, and you can listen very carefully and say, this might work in our city too. And it's not only about innovations, it's about policies and how you communicate your things. But also the other thing what's really noted and is very, very much, everybody's very aware of here at ChangeNOW, is that it's not enough that we cities work more together. We also have to put all the different stakeholders together. Businesses, startups, finance bodies, universities and academic institutions. And that's something which is still, in my thinking, not anywhere near where it should be, that we work together and find a way to work together better, that not everybody sitting in their own office and in their own box and try to figure it out. We have to figure it out together.
So here, this might be controversial, but tourism is a big, maybe, I don't know how big it is for you, but certainly, Kata, for you.
I'm going there.
But I'm going to...
She already promised to travel to Finland, so it's getting bigger.
And I was thinking about culture as a driver of change and the importance of that, and I think ChangeNOW have got an amazing cultural program which is helping this kind of agenda. But then I got to thinking about tourism and, you know, shuttling people all around in aeroplanes, AirBNB, slightly, you know, mindless travel, that's in some cases. How are you thinking about that, and how are you building in resilience to tourism being a negative? But of course, it's a huge value creator, it's a huge job creator. How do you think about that in this modern world in which we need to be living in?
In a complex way.
Excellent.
And then there are
We've got 11 minutes.
And okay, there are no simple stuff here. I'm sure there has to be some extra pricing on flights. I'm sure of that. So if we want to keep our goals to become real, there will be some pricing on flying. And this will change tourism, and this will change the way. But you were talking about it, AirBNB, it causes real social issues. So when we talk about local resilience and the social networks, AirBNB caused a lot of rupture in most of our big cities and social housing and all housing crisis all around most of the big cities I've met. And that's still not a challenge we could counteract. And in the circular economy too. So when, you know, you train your citizens in waste management and to look at their waste and recycle and not to create more, there's a lot of mind you have to put in on tourism. But I think we can work it out.
Just before I go to Pekka, can you not legislate? You're the boss, right? Can you? No. Okay. Okay. So, but how do we? Because I think, you know, this is a major problem which I don't see. We've been talking about this for a long time. This kind of, you know, the real complicated issues brought by particularly the kind of the AirBNB culture. I'm using them as the brand name, you know, not as the kind of for the whole sector of that sharing economy, which is fantastic in some ways. But is there not something needs to be done to kind of say, like the flights, you know, we shouldn't be flying on flights for £20. It was, you know, to go to Brussels from London. So what, Pekka, you want to say something? What can we do?
This is an interesting thing. By the way, the travel is also, industry is growing also in our area, and maybe something's coming because just 2 months ago, CNN chose our city on the list 20 places to visit in the world. So
is that good or bad? Do you feel good about that?
We felt this was good, but we have a very big group working on sustainable tourism, and in Finland, where our nature is big part of the tourism experience, we have to be very careful. But yet in the same time, I must say that sometimes I just wonder that this discussion around tourism and sustainability is important, but let's not forget the big things. It's still about energy. Yeah. It's still about traffic. Those are the big sources. It's about infrastructure, stuff like that. So putting the pressure on individual choices, which is of course necessary too, must not take our focus away that this moving to the sustainable cities is a question about big things and the big institutional structures and the way how we produce energy and stuff like that. We're not going to solve it only by individual choices. And then comes the difficulties. Those things are really expensive, really difficult, and those are real changing the way how we operate cities. So just tourism is important, but the big things are even bigger.
Just one thing to add on regulation. I'm a politician. I believe in regulations, but what we learn in the beginning is that it's a complex system. So if you switch one button up, then it will have multiple effects. So it's a powerful tool, regulation, but you have to understand what you're doing. So you don't just do regulation because it seems a good idea. You have to understand the consequences of what will happen if you push one button.
And absolutely, and you know, I think if you create a framework around, what amazing looks like, there's a narrative to people who visit who are going to learn. As you're going to say that.
I was just thinking that if you understand our landscape, is that we had a discussion earlier, just an hour ago, and there were people who were saying fantastic programs where you take away parking spaces and replace them with shared mobility schemes, and that's of course very good, and I'm totally for it. But what's the difference between the startup company? Startup company is happy. Now we get those spaces for our shared car schemes. But we as cities, as mayors, we have to deal with those people also who lose their parking space. They come to us and say, explain this to me. So that's what I mean about this, when you switch, when we run cities, we always have to take kind of a 360 degrees approach, because we have to deal with all the consequences usually.
So a great point, and you're elected effectively, so you need to make sure that people are happy, and you've got that fine line to be drawing all the time. So shifting to the last couple of minutes, in terms of what you've seen here, because I don't know how much you've been getting out, but this is the first big event that I've been to for a while. The energy here, the ChangeNOW, the innovation, the kind of the collective kind of mayoral and civic engagement. What is inspiring you, and what is making you feel like we're changing now, we're moving forward, and what are you going to go home with as a kind of an idea, Kata?
It's easy to answer because we had so many crises in the past 2.5 years, which means that nothing is like business as usual. So most of our local leaders are looking in front of our feet, cutting out new pathways because of COVID, because of the energy prices, because of the war. So these events help to look up and see, not to lose the focus where I want to go. I mean, I have to know where I want to go. Yeah. And when I look too much at my steps in the day-to-day crisis management, that's not good. So these always give energy that others have the same problems that I do. They don't sleep at night like I do. But still, they believe that we can do it, and we will stay on track. This is what I take home.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and I think the kind of readiness for change is growing all the time. So for various reasons, one of the main reasons, of course, we now have understood that things are not moving forward as a copy-paste. Things happen and world changes. But also what is in ChangeNOW is very inspiring, and what I've noticed that let's say last 2-3 years, the language of the business community has changed dramatically. Now businesses in many places are driving the change, and sometimes, and quite often, I feel that the political discussion is lagging behind. So sometimes the discussion and the kind of societal discussion have not understood that yes, it's already happening, it's already moving, and so we have to update also the way how we talk about in politics in a more bigger picture about the change and the sustainability, because the business community and actually financial bodies, maybe we hear more about that later, they already have made last 2 years very big decisions on how to move forward. And finally, I would tell one example of that. I talked with the CEO of the Central Bank of Finland, and last spring they changed. They said the fight against climate change is the top of an agenda of a central bank. And I said, yeah, sounds good, but why? And they said, because our main job as a part of the European Central Bank is to keep stability in the market. And the climate change is the biggest threat for the long-term stability of the market. So if we believe what we do, we have to fight against climate change. Very simple and clear.
And just because it's an important topic for this audience, the engagement with business, because we've seen some really, what I would call enlightened leaders, people leading big businesses and really talking about reshaping the model, changing their operating system, putting purpose at the heart, and really, seriously taking risk. Are you finding that you can collaborate with local businesses, not only the kind of the bank, the sort of financial side, but the kind of more the big businesses and the big landlords? I mean, I imagine you've got big real estate owners in your city. Are you finding that is a positive force? Are you collaborating? Is that going to help move this along?
We are just building a framework for that. It's called Budapest Global. This is a platform, because it's not easy for a politician to find a transparent platform to sit down with businesses. I think that's always a problem. And we found this framework, but I don't have results yet, so we'll see.
And this is one of the key questions, because we also have to weigh how we operate and how we collaborate, because the main question is that we cannot find a solution so that we in a city think we just order something or make a tender of something. We have to change so that before we move forward, we have this transparent and open dialogue on what are the solutions. So the businesses understand what we are looking for, but also we understand better than we today what is there, what are the innovations and what are the things you can do. And so we have to find more innovative and better ways of having that dialogue ongoing all the time in order to be able to make better decisions.
I think that's a great place, that kind of collaboration and partnership to finish this part of the panel. So if I were in your cities, I would be very inspired to have you leading. I think it's incredible, and I hope you all agree that these two representatives are very, very positive and powerful, and it's great to have you here. And I hope you're agitating the rest of the mayors as much as you've been agitating today. So Kata and Pekka, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
So you guys are going to go, if there's a step. Right, so the next, we're going to try the tech thing now with a live satellite transmission from Athens, I think, where we have, hey, there you go, hello, Eleni. Can't hear you, but we will soon. So she's here, can you see her? But we can't hear her, but that'll come. So I'm going to read about you while you get the sound sorted. But so we're going to talk about solutions to heat resilience. And we have Eleni Myrivili online, who is the senior consultant for heat resilience at the city of Athens. She was appointed Athens Deputy Mayor for Urban Nature and Climate Resilience, as well as Chief Resilience Officer after her election to Athens government in 2014. And since 2021, under the new role of Chief Heat Officer, Europe's first, she is raising awareness of the dangers of extreme heat and co-creating a greener and cooler future for all. We also have Sagnik, Sagnik, come up here. Give a round of applause for Sagnik, who's the good. Oh, you get the thing as well. Sit there, please sit. And Sagnik is, I'm going to give you your background. It's a long one, but it's good. It's Sagnik considers himself as an urban environment engineer. He currently works and lives in Prague. He has a master's in city and urban environment for École Centrale de Nantes. And ECOTEN develops new technical services for urban development stakeholders using data from Earth observation satellites by NASA. He has delivered successful projects to the city municipality of Vienna and Prague, and has worked on several other urban projects with real estate developers, urban designers, and architects. Welcome. We've lost Eleni.
Hear me?
Ah, hello. You're
Hi.
there.
Hi,
Great.
James.
Okay, we can't see you on here, but I'm going to imagine you. So, Eleni, great to see you, or not see you. Can you hear me?
I can, and I can see you guys both, and I'm very upset I'm not with you over there with the background of the Eiffel Tower and the trees.
We wish you were here, but we're gonna, we appreciate your time. So the first question is on everyone's lips. What is a chief heat officer?
It's someone who wakes up every morning fretting about heat and about what cities can do to make people safer in a wholly new climate conditions, which has to do with rising heat. So we've been talking about global warming for decades, but we haven't really been preparing for the extreme heat that we're going to be experiencing, especially in urban settings, which is really, really dangerous for both humans and ecosystems that are in cities or around cities.
So, and very seriously, we were hearing this morning that this is a more and more serious problem, which we know about. We know that the temperatures in New Delhi this week were over 50 degrees. We know that in 2020, 20 times more people died from heat waves in the US than they did from hurricanes. We
That's
know
right.
that climate change makes these high temperatures 100 times more likely to occur, and that we're going to be living in this world going forward. So it is a massive issue. And the other point that resonated this morning is that you can't see heat.
That's
So
right.
you can't see it. You can see a storm, or you can see, an avalanche or something, but you can't see heat. It comes. So I just, before I get Sagnik to talk about what he does at ECOTEN, could I just ask you to give us a flavor for some of the issues and some of the things or the initiatives that you're undertaking in Athens, and how are you thinking about it, and how does that fold into the strategy of the city?
Yeah, so we call it the silent killer. You're absolutely right. And very few people know that of all the extreme weather phenomena, heat is the one that's the deadliest. It claims the most lives. The way I think about how to go about building resilience to heat for the city of Athens and for other cities as well, I think of it in three different pillars. The first pillar is raising awareness, which is what we've been talking about, that very few people know, and there's even less policies that are in place to protect cities from heat. And so one of the things that we're doing, which I believe is going to be a game changer, and we're piloting it this summer, is categorizing heat waves. The methodology that we're using is very, very interesting because we have been studying the particular weather that the masses of air that sit on top of Athens for the last 3 decades and correlated them to mortality rates and figured out what kind of weather typologies actually make the percentage of mortality spike. And we've created these categories, and now we're going to be forecasting weather this summer, giving so each weather category is linked to another percentage of risk for people's health and for people's lives. And this will make it easier for people to understand and also communicate what heat wave means, but also policymakers, which is the second pillar, to create better preparedness plans. So when we do have an extreme heat event, we have better tools and better ways and measures to protect especially the most vulnerable categories, the most vulnerable people in the city, which includes the older people, the people with pre-existing conditions, people with precarious living conditions, women that are pregnant or that are breastfeeding can very quickly dehydrate and or totally lose the capacity to regulate their heat level, but also workers that are working physically. They are also very at risk. And people, especially in countries like Greece, do not understand heat exposure as a great threat. So this is something that's important, and we have to also make sure that we get the message out to them and we kind of have ways to protect them. And finally, the last big and most important thing that I do, the third pillar, is redesign. We have to kind of really think again what our cities look like, because right now they're death traps. And so we have built them with a lot of cement and concrete and asphalt and glass and steel. They just create, they store heat and they radiate heat and they get overheated, and they just exacerbate the conditions that are deadly for people, including, you know, cars that put more heat in the air conditioning that puts more heat in the air, and the way that we build cities that are very densely built. Also, they don't see the sky enough at night to cool down. So our best tool here, and you've talked about this already, is of course nature, bringing nature into the city and bringing a lot of trees and ecosystems so that nature is alive and well and happy. And also there's, of course, technologies and materials that we can use that can help as well.
Amazing, and thank you. That's actually a very good framing of all of it. And you know, in many ways, it's scary stuff, isn't it? Really, what you're talking about, and particularly we've just been through a pandemic, and now we're staring down the barrel of this this kind of thing. And I think it means we need to act now. I mean, I keep saying it, but we can't just not do things. And the fact that you're showcasing here at ChangeNOW, and some of your colleagues have been here, we were hearing them earlier, is really good to show that you're changing the way that we need to radically transform. This is not an iterative thing. This is, and the real estate developers that are clearly here, I hope, they're going to have to change the way they build buildings, and planning is going to change, and it's going to be about solutions, which brings me perfectly to Sagnik here, sitting here with me. I hope you can see him. And I'm just going to just say that Sagnik has been downstairs. He's one of the 500 innovators who is displaying. He's one of our Springwise innovators as well, and we've been tracking him for a long time. He was here at ChangeNOW a couple of years ago, so he's come back. And I'm going to get you, first of all, so again, Santiago talks a lot about solutions, and you are a solution, Sagnik. And tell us what you do. Explain it as simply as you can, because it's complicated, but actually it is quite simple. And tell everyone, and then we can just see, we can talk a bit more.
Well, thank you so much for the wonderful introduction that you gave, and I'm super excited to be here, especially as on the private sector, representing the private sector and the startup and the innovators community. Where for the solution, it's actually it's not a direct solution. It's something that we want to support city planners and urban developers to make informed decisions on how to make policies that are driven by data to make cities more resilient to extreme heat events. And one of the ways in which we have done that is we have provided maps for the city. For example, what we did for the city of Vienna, we made what we call the Urban Heat Vulnerability Map, which essentially shows in a very colorful way which parts of the city specifically are most vulnerable to extreme heat events. And actually, this is something that we use only data-driven methodologies for this. We use data from satellites. There's plenty of them out there who are giving wonderful amount of data for many, many years, and you can use them to understand a lot of things that you wouldn't normally get just by analyzing just a simple city of the map. And so much data is out there. And then there's a combination of open data, like census data, that you can use to combine them, and then you can get a whole new perspective of the city, and you will understand exactly where and how you can make implementations for city planners to protect the citizens the most. And this brings me to the second part of our proposal solution. Once we've identified these vulnerable areas, we look into that area and we make a 3D model of that area to see what exactly is happening there. Why does it get heated up? What is what we call microclimatic aspect of that area that leads it to get overheated as compared to other areas? Mostly it's kind of obvious that area is usually very less vegetated, it's completely concrete. Heat gets trapped in there and gets released during the nighttime, where you see this overheating quite phenomenally. And when we see that, the solutions also come out. It's something very well known. I think everybody would know, the city planners already know that blue-green infrastructure, green areas, and then like humidifiers, moistures. These, we know that they can bring down temperatures during an extreme heat event. We have the technology with our simulation technology that was actually developed here in France, so Solar and Microclimat, which has the ability to predict how an area behaves during a heat wave event, and how a particular solution, such as adding a green area or adding a tree in a certain area, will have an impact upon the microclimate of that specific area. And this allows us to devise various different scenarios, because let's face it, I mean, we cannot afford to put trees everywhere, and sometimes that can even work against you in some ways. So you need to know exactly where to put the trees.
No.
Oh,
And
don't worry.
okay. So
Slightly weird, but okay.
yeah. So where exactly you can put the trees that would maximize the cooling impact of your design? So we can devise scenarios and we can compare them and we can present exactly scenario A is better than scenario B, and that can save a lot of money and would provide very good visuals as well as convincing data for city planners.
Fantastic. I mean, that is amazing. So a lot of the time we talk about the solutions being here already. And I think what we're seeing, you know, we see it all around ChangeNOW, and you know, that the solutions are here. But I want to get back, Eleni, because we haven't got much time, to thinking about nature. You were just about to launch on nature, and for example, we could take all the cars out of Paris and replace it with trees, and that, you know, would be a great thing, I think. But and reconfigure mobility. How are your planning teams, and how's that going on? And do you think with the evidence that you're creating, you know, around heat, the threat of heat, is going to help push and really drive radical change rather than iterative kind of not much change?
James, I don't know. I hope so. I really do, because as you said, it's a matter, it has to be a radical change. And most of our politicians are going slowly. And it's kind of also understandable. It's worrisome, and they have to take the people with them. And I think they are scared a lot of the time. I think the people are more ready, as your previous panel, I think, mentioned at some point. The people are often more ready than the policymakers are sometimes. Athens is kind of on. I think the mayor that we have now is ready to take stronger steps. I really hope so. I mean, it's a challenge, and it has to go vertically across all the different sectors, right? It's not just nature. It has to take into consideration, as you said before, you know, how do we build? How do we? And as Sagnik said, I mean, there's a lot of different aspects that can help create a better microclimate in different neighborhoods, and it depends on what already exists there, and what can we change, and what can we add, and what can we subtract. So it has to have a long-term planning. We have to have politicians with vision, and we have to make sure that they take the people with them. I mean, this whole idea of inclusive, what we call inclusive transition to better conditions is extremely important.
And when sorry, no, just to kind of build on that, when you're talking about developing building new buildings, so there's a whole debate in London about retrofit or build something new, and the developers all want to knock it all down and start again, and then the councils are saying, well, you know, we need to look at retrofitting that. Are you building this as an argument to drive an agenda that is, that is more sustainable and therefore more resilient? And I don't know the answer. You know, there's no right answers to a lot of this.
Yes, it very much has to do with what kind of conditions we're talking about, and what kind of neighborhoods, and what kind of buildings we have. So in Greece, in Athens, we have an extremely densely built and densely populated city that has very little open space. There's a very good argument to be made to actually pull buildings down and create space for more green areas, especially buildings that are not used and all that. And there's also good arguments to be made we talk a lot about energy upgrades, but for buildings, we need also to start thinking about thermal upgrades, and really kind of thinking about what can we do to our buildings to make them better and more safe thermally. So this is kind of another aspect. There's subsidies always for energy issues. So this is a brilliant kind of moment to understand how the idea of mitigation and adaptation and resilience can go together, right?
Great. So
green roofs, you have to start thinking of putting solar panels together with green elements and white elements. Like, it really has to be a holistic approach that thinks of lots of different things at the same time, and we don't have any possibility of doing it wrong this time. We really have to do it right and get win-win solutions. And you know, I mean, you have to also do collaborations. We are together, we're working together with the Arsht Rock Resilience Center. We're working together from the Atlantic Council. We're kind of learning from other cities. It's a big effort. And I know you want me to be more like specific about, you know, how, you know, what are we doing and how is it? I don't have the solutions, but we are really pushing to a much more real and radical transformation of our cities.
You're a pioneer. You're a pioneer, and you know it's tough at the beginning. And the main thing is you're doing it. And I think one of the things that, again, ChangeNOW is 5 years old now, and right at the beginning it was not what it is today. And you know it was hard and it's tough. And I think we're all here because we're supportive of you, and we can see and you're doing it, you know, you're doing it. So, and you're sharing it. I think the other thing is this collaboration and the sharing, which is really powerful. So is the one thing, I'm gonna need to close this session in a second, is the one thing one message you'd like to send over the satellite to this group, apart from visit Athens this summer by train? Which is possibly not, yeah.
No, the one kind of message is, for me, is that keep heat in mind. It's a really it's something that we really will be facing more and more, and also keep making sure that you speak clearly to the people, and you make sure that people understand that it's to their benefit to move towards change. And this, you know, this is really, really important. And in France, you know this very well.
Brilliant.
I mean, this is like, make sure that the people are with you, and get the governments to be moving faster.
Okay, and so that's the view from Athens. Thank you. Don't go yet. Sagnik, your perspective, you've been in amongst the action, the solutions. Give us a final view of what you're seeing and what you would like to tell, you know, what would you like the people who are here in this audience to do following this panel?
Collaborate more.
Very
2
good.
words, simple as that. Yep. Because there is like, I mean, I feel that from like when we were students, we know the scientific community. They've done incredible amount of work already. So many solutions are coming up. I think this program and this whole event is an example of that. And some of them are so crazy that it seems like as if they're just coming from outer space. But they need to be known, and cities can take advantage of that. They're available to them. So collaborate, talk to each other more. And I think from my side, public-private partnership is a good thing. So a lot of good things are going to happen when you bring different kinds of people, not just companies, but NGOs, other actors, municipalities, anything. Bring them together, make a multidisciplinary approach, and I think that you will be surprised what can happen from there.
Which is an amazing way to conclude this panel, because ChangeNOW is all about collaboration and bringing amazing people like both of you together. Thank you so much, and good luck.
Thank you.
So you're going to go. I'll leave that there. Thanks. And now we are going to talk about the money. So I'm absolutely delighted. Emilie, please come up to the stage. Please give Emilie a round of applause. She's waited patiently for us. Take a seat. So I'm gonna talk to you a little bit, ask you some questions. I'm just gonna read Emilie's incredibly impressive, I have to put my glasses on, biography. So Emilie is the Deputy Executive Director of the FMDV Global Fund for Cities Development. It's an international network of local and regional governments dedicated to promoting financing and investment solutions for sustainable cities and urban infrastructures. You have 20 years of experience in the field of international relations and urban and sustainable development policies, including 13 years in the French public administration. Well done for doing that. And as an advisor in charge of an urban development at the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs, you drafted and negotiated the Sustainable Development Goal SDG 11 on sustainable cities, managed urban cooperation projects in Africa, coordinated a multi-stakeholder platform gathering French urban expertise, and also served as an advisor at the cabinet of the French minister in charge of urban policy in deprived areas. I mean, an amazing journey. So thank you so much for joining us. And now you're connecting and you're helping fund development and sustainability in cities. And when we first talked, I hadn't really heard of your organization. But before we talk a bit about that, Emilie, tell me about your journey and how did you sort of end up here, and what was your path, maybe sort of personal as well as the business side of things?
Thank you so much, and thank you to all of you. I'm really honored to be part of this community of change makers on urban resilience, and I'm very honored to participate in the discussion to close this day. Well, as you said, I had the opportunity to work on urban development at several scales of public policies, at the international scale, also at the local scale. My last position was head of environmental department of the Préfecture de Seine-Saint-Denis, which comprised 40 cities in the Paris region. And I had the opportunity to work on the environmental regulation of big urban projects there, such as new metro lines. And working at all these scales of action, I really wanted to be useful to help as many local governments as possible to achieve their vision and to implement their projects for people, for developing public services. And this is why I decided to join the Global Fund for Cities Development to develop solutions to provide funding and money for as many mayors as possible.
Fantastic. And just why are cities to give us a perspective on why cities are such a kind of major stakeholders in this whole debate, and why are you directing that funding through to the cities rather than more broadly? Is it for maximum impact, or sort of how does that all work?
Yeah, as you said, now we have more than the half of the world population living in cities, and we will be soon 70% in 2050. And in some regions, like Africa or Asia, we will have a very rapid urban growth. For instance, in Africa, we will have the population will double, the urban population will double in the next 25 years. And we will have to build as many cities as China has built through its history.
Wow.
So it's really huge. And it means that most of the infrastructures we will need to build in Africa, we will be in cities that don't exist yet today. Wow. So we have a huge need to finance cities. And also, as we could see today, cities are, this urbanization is both an unprecedented opportunity to develop innovative solutions. We could hear today about all the solutions developed by cities, mayors, and we know that it's in cities that we will find the synergies between all the stakeholders to develop these solutions. For instance, in the field of climate change, we know that cities account for 58% of the GHG global emission, but at the same time, they represent more than 20% of the abatement options, for instance, through building efficiency or circular economy. And this is really at the local level that it will happen. And the United Nations, they consider that 55% of these Sustainable Development Goals won't be achieved without the involvement of local and urban actors. So for me, it's really critical to support all this innovation and to allow all local governments to develop policies and to support them responding all the challenges for the sake of all the inhabitants and all the people.
Amazing, and it's very interesting that you talk about the kind of all the cities that haven't been built. So you're actually you're funding the sustainable development of the new cities as well as, I guess, some of the retrofitting of the cities that exist. Just tell us how the fund works. Where does the money come from, and how does it get distributed? So if if I want to give you some money or if I want to spend some money, how does that work, and a quantum of the kind of how much, if I may?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, we are, to give you a precision, we are a network of local governments. We have heard about the role of these networks, and we are specialized in developing solutions to provide financing to local governments. And the really striking thing is that the money is there. There is a lot of money. I talked about the SDG 11. You know, after the adoption of this SDG and also after the recognition by the COP21 in Paris in 2015 of the role of cities to tackle climate change, many credit lines have been set up for cities and urban development by national governments, by development finance institutions. And also there is a real interest and eagerness of private investors to invest in cities. However, it doesn't connect to cities.
Yep.
And about the figures, it is estimated that we will need $90 trillion by 2030 of urban infrastructure investment to reach the climate 2-degree target. It seems a little bit weird when we talk about saving the planet, we don't think about financing cities. But in fact, we will need to finance these cities because, as I said, in many regions like in Africa, if we don't do it, we're going to have slums and inequalities and pollution and traffic jams and loss of biodiversity. And in developed countries, we also need to retrofit our infrastructures to allow them to be more climate neutral. So these are the main figures, and this is where we work to find solutions to connect the dots and to fill this market failure.
So effectively, you are in the middle of, you understand where the money is. So there's lots of money. There's, almost too much. No, but there's enough money, right?
Yeah.
And you know where it is.
Yeah.
But not all of us do. And then the cities definitely don't know where that it even exists, many of them. And if you're building a new city, you might like to have that. So you're the person to talk to, and your team. But I think it's a very important point. You're a super connector, and if we can help you connect more, which if anyone can help connect more, then we'll accelerate the spending of the money, which will accelerate because it'll be spent in the right way. So is that roughly right?
Yeah. In fact, we are working at FMDV in developing solutions to connect the demand side to the supply side.
Okay.
And these solutions, in fact, to explain to you how we work, we are a kind of network of expertise as well as an operational incubator. And we've heard a lot about the importance of working at all levels with a multi-stakeholder approach. And this is what we do because, of course, why do we have this financing gap and market failure? It's a complex issue, and we need to involve all stakeholders to find these solutions. And among the solutions we develop, so we work with in all geographies, in all regions. We work with local governments, of course. We have worked with over 1,500 local governments to date. And we also support national governments because we need them on board. We also support regional organizations like the WAEMU in Western Africa or the ASEAN in Asia. And we work in developing an ecosystem with all stakeholders, United Nations agency, development finance institutions, such as public development banks, which are really key on the ecosystem. And we also work with private companies, private investors. And all together, we support this solution through several pillars. So the first one is developing multi-stakeholder knowledge and exchange. Like today, we exchange all our experiences and learn one from each other. And this is really key to build a common understanding, because when you talk about finance, most of the time people are a bit frightened because it's complex and it's tricky. So we help stakeholders to build a common understanding. Many cities, all the mayors present here and all over the world, they all have hundreds of needs, ideas, and projects on their desk that they need to transform it into bankable projects, into projects that meet the requirement of financiers. And this is where we can connect the mutual understanding and the common action. So this is the first pillar. And then we also work on producing knowledge, on innovation, financial innovation. I will share some examples with you later. And we promote these innovations in the international agenda at the United Nations. For instance, at the end of April, I was in New York at the UN headquarters for the 5 years of the implementation of the new urban agenda, which is the international agenda on cities. And it was really a great opportunity because we were able in 2016, during the adoption of this agenda, to promote some of these solutions we have developed through our research. And now that it's inscribed in the UN agenda, it's easier to find money to implement programs on the ground. So this is the third pillar. We have operational programs, like technical assistance. And we support cities, but also national governments to develop policies, instruments, capacity building, and also to structure pipelines of bankable projects and to connect it to investors.
So you're a massive value add, not only connecting, but also helping frame it and put it into the right form so that it is bankable. Because I can, often the money and the answer they need, you're the catalyst in the middle, if you like, which is a hugely valuable for all parties, I imagine. So tell me, we haven't got much longer, but I'm going to ask you a couple more questions, Emilie. The challenges, the top couple of challenges that you face in what you're trying to do.
Well, the challenges is just to continue this dialogue, to have this better mutual understanding, and also to find the right policies, because each stakeholder has its own constraints. The member states at the UN and the development banks, their mandate is to finance the SDGs and the climate agenda. However, they have constraints as banks in terms of risk. And so we have to continue deploying these solutions. Maybe I can present you some of them.
Please.
For instance, in a few weeks ago, we were in Lomé in Togo for a coaching session. The idea is it will not be sufficient to train cities, to explain them, okay, you can access this kind of funding and you have to do this way, because all this is very technical and complex. And so we decided to set up a new methodology, which we call coaching. And the idea is to work together with cities on their project. So we were, during 2 days, we sat at the table with 6 cities from Western Africa, with their city partner in France, and together with development finance institutions and private investors. And we had a look at the projects. It was really concrete projects like urban mobility, waste management, building energy efficiency. And we the cities, the African cities, they presented, they pitched their project, and then we sat together for 2 days, and we shared experiences and advices based on each stakeholder's experience. And it was really interesting because it were stakeholders that has never talked to each other before. And the really interesting thing is that you were at the same time coached,
Yep.
you received coaching, but at the same time you were also coaching each other. And
Yes.
it was a real collaborative approach. And also African cities were able to coach each other. Like, okay, how did you do in your city to develop this mobility project? Okay, this is the way I did it. And it was a really rich exchange. And when this coaching session is over, we have what we call matchmaking. It's a kind of methodology to connect the city's project to investors. And we help them to speak the same language, and we facilitate the financial deals.
Amazing. So you're effectively accelerating the process and participating and all the benefits that come with that. So I think that just sounds fantastic. Now, we haven't got hardly any time. So tell me what ChangeNOW has been like for you, and has it been helpful? What have you been doing? And what's the vibe you've been getting while you've been here?
Well, I think it's really, really great to be able to get inspiration for each of you. It's really amazing for us. Also, it's amazing because we have several partners that we work with. For instance, the city of Paris that presented this morning the new project to set up a local carbon aggregator to finance the climate neutral transition at the territorial level. So we work with them on this project. And also to see the colleagues that were in the panel last year, and it's a kind of mutual encouragement to be with you today. And this is something we want to promote at FMDV. We have developed an internet platform which is called the Local Finance Knowledge Hub, where we have video interviews from practitioners who share their solution experience and innovations. Urban development is a field that is really innovative. It's unlimited. And finance too. Finance is also a field of great innovation. So when you mix up the two of them, it becomes really incredible. And each of us is really busy and focused on its own priorities every day. So it's important to take the time to feed from each other's experiences and also energy. And it's really great. I'm really grateful.
Well, look, I mean, you are an inspiration. I think your work is extraordinary. I love the innovation and finance coming together. But what you've talked about, because I can imagine how tough putting all that together is. I think it's not easy. It's very complicated. It needs someone with the intellect and commitment that you have. And I know you've got an amazing team because I've met some of them. A brilliant place to land the end of this day 2 at ChangeNOW, the Cities Program. And Emilie, thank you so much. And please, everyone, a big round of applause for Emilie. And that is it. So I think it's time to go and have a drink. Thank you so much for being here. It's been brilliant having you. And have a great day tomorrow.